Everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing a full series review for Be the Beginning. It's one of the latest Netflix original anime series. I know they got a million of them now and they're pumping them out like crazy. I swear this came out like maybe 2 weeks ago and I just saw like a brand new one came out like this weekend or last weekend. But this will have some spoilers in it. Of course, I'll let you guys know once I'm getting to the spoiler segment of this review. But just to kick things off with the basic concept, you got basically our three main characters. You have Keith, who's an investigator, Lily, who's also an investigator, and then Koku, which watching it in dubbed, all I kept hearing was Goku because it's literally one letter off the whole series. I was just like, I know that's not his name, but they would say it just like Koku, and it's K and G. Like when you say it that way, it sounds so similar. But those are like our three main characters, and each of them kind of function in sort of this weird, crazy story where it starts off like even just the synopsis of it was like this person is searching after a serial killer who may end up actually, being like having like superpowers and stuff. And I was like, all right, well, that's entertaining. The synopsis does make it seem a little bit different than the series plays out because it made it seem like it was one person searching after a bunch of superpowered criminals, and that's not what this series is like at all. That's kind of how it starts, just a little bit. Like it barely even starts that way, and then it goes into something else. But the way it made it seem was like they were trapped on an island or something. I felt like I read something where it said they were like on an island, and there was like which I guess technically they were because I think it's set in Japan, so I don't know. But it made it seem like they were on like this set island where they're searching for superpowered criminals, superpowered serial killers, and I was like, well, that's super cool. Story is still entertaining, but not as like insane as what I thought it was gonna be going off of the synopsis. But it's still a good show. 12 episodes, so I was happy about that. It's one of those ones where if you're binge watching, you can make it through. You'll get through it. Because I was thinking like, crap, it's gonna be like 24 episodes or something. It'll take me forever to finally get it out or do my review on it. But 12 episodes. I was surprised by the time I got to them. I was like, oh crap, it's done. And I was like, okay, which made sense because by the time it hit that 12th episode, I was like, if this is the midway point, where the F is it going now? But it was actually the end, and I was like, okay, that makes so much more sense because I'm like, I don't know how you go from all the insanity that's happening to like, and now the second half, and it calms down after this. But 12 good episodes. I like the way it's paced out. You have the element of the characters kind of growing because it is a supernatural element, so they're going from this normal investigative process of a serial killer who they don't know who it is, and then that starts to bleed into some of the supernatural elements. And I always like stories like that where the characters become involved with the supernatural stuff, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then the supernatural side itself is super awesome. That's where all like the crazy action is, and that just looks good. Like the visuals for this are really sweet when it comes to the action and stuff like that. But ultimately I'd say it was a decent anime. Gets like real crazy. I think once it gets to the halfway point of this anime, that's when things really like get super nuts. And of course, I have to save that for the spoiler discussion. But I would definitely recommend it. I thought it was a pretty good anime. Definitely held my attention. The only time I was really doing something else is when I was like legitimately working on something else, but I still knew exactly what was happening. And that was actually in like the final episode, so it was like half of it was straight action anyway, and then the other half was like the conclusion to one of the other storylines where it was just the dialogue. So it was like I already know exactly what's going on anyway, and that's like the only time where I wasn't paying 100% attention. Oddly enough, was like the very end. But yeah, it was definitely cool. Like I said, the animation was good. The action is pretty sweet. Some of the revelations as things start to play out, definitely entertaining to find out and learn some of the secrets that have been kind of plaguing the characters throughout the series. So I definitely enjoyed that. Like I said, definitely recommend it. 12 episodes. You can kind of shoot through it in a weekend if you want to, or just have it as that short little anime as you're going through if you got some time to film. But from this point on, definitely full on spoilers. So if you haven't seen the anime yet, definitely don't check this out unless you don't care about spoilers. In which case, I'm definitely about to spoil like the entire thing. So going through, I would say I enjoyed the whole thing. Just watching like the first episode, they had a great action sequence on the train. Koku just like there's some scenes where they're super cool, like when they're in the house after Lily finds both of them, and then one of the twins is shooting up the house, and Koku just drops down like a comet and is just like boom and just dead. That was one of my favorite scenes. I was just like, Jesus, he just destroyed this kid. But the action I always thought was really cool, and I liked the scenes where he's fighting with the characters. But it starts off so simple where it's like, okay, you have this guy Keith Flake comes back. He's like this great former detective, and he's back on the case, and they're looking for Killer Bee, which of course made me think of Naruto all the time. But they didn't use that too much, which I was happy because I'm like, all I'm gonna think if they keep saying Killer Bee is Killer Bee from Naruto. So I don't know why they put that in there. Like Naruto is insanely famous. They should have known not to use the term Killer Bee. But it was still cool. Like, going through it, was like, all right, so they have these ideas, and the serial killer element, and this character who's like a vigilante, supernatural vigilante, but at the same time isn't really a hero in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of just like random, which we find out at the end that just happened to be who he killed because that was who was involved in the raid when Koku was a kid. So he's not really a hero. He's just supernatural, but he also ends up fighting other supernatural characters, most of which all use like katanas and stuff. So of course, for me that was like every person was using like blades and stuff, and I was like, sweet. Um, but it was really cool. And then I think it was episode 7. That's when things just got insane because we get the flashback episode, and it was like, well, that's cool. We find out exactly what's going on with Koku. Keith had figured out exactly what was going on. I think they mentioned that in like the first episode, actually, first or second. It may have even been in the third, where Keith is like, "Oh, it's not B, it's actually 13 and 4," and it's because these, that's like their numerical designation, and 13 is looking for 4, and that was Koku looking for his friend, and I totally can't remember her name. I know I want to say it's like Anya or something like that, but that's not right. I know it starts with an A. But he had figured that out, and so eventually we go through the process of realizing that the girl who doesn't say anything is the person that Koku was looking for this whole time. And then when they finally confront each other, and I think it was when she stabbed him, that's when he started to realize it. And then it was like when he was stabbed in the back by the other guy, and it was basically like their blood kind of merged together. It like instantly brought back all of his memories. So that next episode was our flashback, and we got all the truth about everything that happened. We see a lot of the characters when they were younger, which some of that stuff gets revealed later, where the girl who said to like take her leg, that it's revealed that she was one of the little kids, because they don't have like all the face makeup. They just have just a bunch of little kids with crazy different hairstyles. So we find out what happened with them as kids. We find out what happened to Keith's dad, because we found out that Keith actually was helping Koku and all the other kids when they were younger. So they all end up getting killed off, which we find out at the very end was actually done by Keith's friend, because he's absolutely insane. But at this point, we don't know that it's just a flashback. So it's like, okay, this is cool. This is how they, bonded as friends, the brother and everything. And we find out, what his deal is. And then they have like the other kid who Koku chops his arm off, and we find out that he's actually going to be in like season 2 if this does end up getting a season 2. So I was like, okay, that's very interesting. Going through this process of the flashback. And then the episode after that is when things just really kick up, because it's like, okay, got all that information from the flashback. And then it was like they just instantaneously introduced a brand new storyline, like straight in the middle of the episode, or straight in the middle of the series, which was Keith's buddy being crazy and trying to figure out, they go back to who killed Keith's sister. So they go through the process, and he's like, I'm pretty sure it's my friend. And so then that's like half, that becomes a brand new storyline, like straight in the middle, which is not what I expected. And he becomes a secondary villain, and that's, the human side of it, the human storyline where he's the bad guy. And then we still have the stuff with Koku and ultimately finding his brother at the end. And it was just like, this is nuts. Like, I was not expecting any of that stuff to happen with the other guy. Like, he showed up like twice before, and then he's like the main villain, and he ends up kidnapping Lily. And we find out that he killed like a bunch of women that looked like her, because he was absolutely insanely infatuated with her. And because she actually ended up getting feelings for Keith, because that was just her adopted brother, not her blood relative, that freaked the guy out. So I think Gilbert was his name. So he flips out, kidnaps her, tortures her, and murders her, and chops her body up. And it's like, that is freaking nuts. Like, he's the one that did that, and he still talks to her as a ghost and stuff. And so he's just absolutely insane. And then it comes down to the final episode, where they're going back and forth between the storylines, and Koku is trying to, basically save the woman that he loves, pretty much. And he has to deal with it. And, he fights the one dude who had his arm taken off, and then, he takes him down, and then he's fighting his brother in the end. And then the other half, where it's just the dialogue and stuff, is Keith and like his former best friend, and they talk about, he's going through like this crazy mental stuff, which was kind of entertaining to listen to, even though I was like doing all this stuff. I was listening to what he was saying, where he's like, we're exactly the same. Like, he was the crazy guy where it's like, we're exactly the same. You always have to investigate. I basically always have to murder people. It's the same thing. So he was just really insane. And then my favorite thing had to be when he actually died, because they're going through the process. I love the action and stuff that was going on with Koku, but then it just like, it was already crazy. And then it just kicked up when he actually gets killed, because Keith is kind of put in this position where it's like, either I let him kill Lily or I have to kill him. And so he decides to kill his former best friend. And they go through this narration in slow motion, and I was like, that was honestly one of my favorite parts of the whole anime, just listening to him say all of that was a test to see if his friend would kill him, to see if Keith would change his ways, because he's so set as this one character that everyone knows exactly what he's like. Would I be able to change that and make him kill me? And then it was like the joy of like the 4 seconds between being shot in the head to fully just dying. That is a moment that would only ever be shared between the two of us, and that realization that you've done it, I would have for those 4 seconds. And it was like, that is the craziest like little dialogue at the end ever. So I absolutely love that. I don't know who wrote that, but I just like that whole ending segment. I was like, that is even crazier. Like I feel like that's even crazier than him killing the people, because it's like he kind of wanted to die just to see if he could get this specific person to do it, because it's like, I know him so well. Can I get him to just step out of his barrier, step out of his comfort zone and, murder someone? And it was like, that's the craziest test I've ever heard, but he did it. And, Keith kills him. And, like, they even reference it where Lily's like, it's kind of weird. Like, he was smiling. And that was why. And I was like, that dialogue was great. And it was just like, that's an insane thing to do in general. Like, this whole test is to see if you can have your best friend kill you, because that's something that he would normally never do. He would never condone that level of violence. And I was just like, that's nuts. That's an entertaining villain. He's absolutely insane, up to the point of, I'm willing to die because I would be happy if I got my friend to kill me. That almost doesn't even make sense to say out loud, but that is exactly what he wanted. And I enjoyed it all the way through. I was just like, that was nuts. Like, just the whole dialogue already was crazy enough. And then him being happy about how it played out, like wanting to see if he could get murdered, and that being the ultimate test. That was just crazy. So I absolutely loved that. The action was good too. I was surprised with the way it ended though. Naturally, anime is like, okay, well, you have the two characters split and they forget each other over time and stuff like that. Typically, it's like we're reunited and everything's great, and that was not really the case. And at the end there, unless I missed some stuff, because I admittedly was like kind of going back and forth, paying attention or not. But unless I missed something, Goku ultimately sort of, he won. He did kill his brother, and the ship blows up. And if I remember it, they don't even technically show what happened, but Goku of course lived. But it's just like I don't believe actually ended up saving her, because she got stabbed. So she bled a bunch. I don't think they actually did show where she got stabbed. They made it seem like she died, but they do mention that it was in the episode before the flashback. They did reference from the twins. It was like, we just can't shoot them. I think it was in the head or in the heart. So if they got stabbed in the head or in the heart, they would officially die. And I think she was stabbed in the chest. So I don't think that really worked out for him. And like I said, there could have been something that I missed. I also didn't realize they were basically in space, because when it blew up, the Zeppelin, I saw like the curvature of the Earth. I was like, I must have missed a lot, because I wasn't paying that much attention. I was like, obviously they were up in the air. I knew he was on like a Zeppelin. And then they show it, and I was like, were they going to space? Because they were in space, because like I said, they showed the curvature of the planet. I was like, I think I may have missed some extra stuff on that last little bit for Goku's story, within the last episode. But like I said, unless I'm mistaken, she's dead, and he didn't have that typical sort of anime reunion. I'll admit to just not even really knowing 100%, because I felt like once the explosion happened, they don't even really show what happened in general on that half of the storyline. It goes back to the investigative stuff, and Keith is being reinstated, and he and Lily gets like a new super super tiny car, and that's pretty much how it ends, and everything is kind of okay. And then after the end credits, for those of you who may have skipped it, there's an end credit scene, and that's where they show that the kid who had his arm chopped off by Goku in the flashback episode, he's actually still alive. Like, he didn't actually die there. He was just unconscious. And someone else is talking to him too. So that's why I assumed that his brother was dead. But I was like, well, who is that talking to him? Like, who else is involved in, this whole debacle? So I am curious how that's going to end up playing out if we do end up getting a season 2. And it's just like, all right, well, where is this going to go next? Because the whole thing was that kid was one of the people protecting him, but then it seemed like he was, with the way they kind of tease it at the end, he's going to end up being one of the villains. So it's like, well, why would he become a villain based on everything that, went down with them? So I'm very curious what the storyline could be if we get a season 2. But ultimately, I really enjoyed this. Like the action. It's decent with the comedy. They had like some little moments here and there. It wasn't really big on comedy, but definitely enjoyed the action. I like the way they did the style of Keith figuring certain stuff out, where things would kind of just pop up at random, and you kind of just have to read it as it's going through. Because they did that. It was a really cool scene when he was going through the process of who's man one and man two, when he was first talking to Koku in the restaurant, and a bunch of stuff was coming up, and he would pause for a long time, and you read all the different stuff, and it was like, well, man two is basically Koku, who could use mind control. I was like, well, who is man one? And so he figured out that man one was human, but it's like, and that's when the man two thing came up, where it's like man two is him, and that's when he realized it was his buddy. So I definitely like that throughout the series, and just them showing how smart he is, and it was just the calculations and stuff popping up and things like that. So I thought that was a pretty cool element of just showing how he's kind of going through the process of figuring out what's right and what's wrong. But all in all, definitely a good anime. Certainly violent, but I think it was like, it definitely wasn't as violent as I thought it was going to be, especially with the synopsis where it's like the serial killer stuff. Wasn't as crazy as I thought. It was kind of, you're like just right on the cusp. Some scenes would get super bloody, like when the girl got stabbed, they just show like a pool of blood just basically pouring out of her. And there's other spots like when people get sliced up, it's just like, okay, you just boom, turn to dust. Sometimes they get sliced up a little bit. Then they had like the one scene where the guy was like dying from the poison gas and the crazy stuff like that. So sometimes they'd show it a bit. Other times they wouldn't. They had to do with the hacksaw, and they would show people's heads falling off and stuff. And then other times they would just be moving at Dragon Ball Z speeds, and it was just like, oh, there's just like blood, little drops of blood like flying throughout the air. But definitely enjoyed the action. Lily was definitely the comedy of the whole series, so I liked her. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good story. I liked the way it was handled, and the revelations I thought were done at a fairly decent pace. There weren't too many anyway, but I thought it was kind of cool how it was playing out. And I was like, all right, well, what's going on? Like, who's doing what, and exactly when and why did it end up happening? So I liked how it was handled. Thought the flashback episode definitely helped with the whole supernatural mystery. It was just like, great. That just did a whole bunch of stuff. It connected, both the characters, and it was like, this is exactly what happened here. And also, this is who he's been looking for, and he didn't remember, and that was kind of revealed because of the flashback episode that he didn't actually remember, or the episode after they revealed that. But I enjoyed it. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this series, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Are you guys interested enough to see season 2? Would you watch through it? With the way they did this, with it being a Netflix original, I don't know if this is based off of anything. I know some of their originals are at least based off of light novels, if not like full-on manga. So I don't know if this one is. I would assume it is, just because of the fact that it's an anime, so I assume that they based it off of something and didn't just make it up themselves. But I thought it was good. I would definitely watch a season 2, like I said, with the way it ended, where seemingly he kind of killed off all the bad guys. What are they going to do with season 2? Like, why is the one kid who wanted to protect him, why is he now going to end up, why did he grow to become one of the villains? So definitely makes me curious, like, what they're looking for as far as him being like the king and all that stuff. Like, that's not really as important as it would probably seem like it should be, with him being like, the most important of all these kids. And then they turn on him, because they basically got tricked. They end up turning on him in the end, and him wiping his own memories. That didn't exactly help things out either. He ends up fighting everybody. But I'm very curious how they would continue that storyline with, we kind of just want you to be what you're meant to be. And also, like I said, he kind of killed like a bunch of people anyway, although it was a whole school. So, who knows who else actually survived that night outside of the one dude with the one arm now. So sure, they got a bunch of random characters they can just make up and be like, yeah, we survived, or there's another school, perhaps, something like that. But we'd love to know if you guys are interested in the season 2. And like I said, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this season in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.